Hi Huskies, hi Bulldogs. For today's science lesson, I thought it would be fun to go out in my little yard and find some stuff from nature for you. It's springtime now. Winter's over. Pretty soon it'll be summer. Right now it's springtime. And there are a lot of plants and animals that haven't been doing anything all winter. They just lay there or they hibernate or they go into the ground and hide. And now that it's springtime, a lot of those plants are starting to grow again and a lot of the animals are starting to come out. So I found some plants and animals from outside that I thought I'd look at with you and we can talk about it a little bit. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my camera and I'm going to point it down at some of these things. And then for some of them, we'll use the microscope to look at them really close. I'll give you a quick preview of what I have. All right, over here I have a few flowers that I found growing. They're wildflowers that I found growing outside. This is part of a tree that fell down, and I used a saw to cut this piece off so I could bring it inside. It's part of a branch from a big tree that fell down when it was really windy. In here we have some very little bugs that were inside of a flower. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those. And then I found this, I'm not sure what it is, but I found it in a spider web. So we're going to look really close at that and see if we can tell what it is. All right, and then there's a couple more things here that we'll talk about. Okay, so I'm going to point my camera down at the table and we'll talk about what we see. All right, let's start by looking at this piece of a tree. This is part of the tree. What I did was I broke off a piece of the bark. That's the bark right there. The bark goes on the outside of the tree. And sometimes animals will dig holes in the bark and make their homes in the bark, especially beetles. I'm not sure if I see anything alive, but if we see any little holes in the tree, then that might tell us that there was an animal that was living in there. Oh, there's a big hole right there. I don't know what made that. Maybe it was an animal that was making its home inside of this tree. There's the outside. That looks like there used to be a branch right there. And that branch broke off. I think that's what's happening right there. Yeah, I don't see anything living on it right now. It does look like maybe there was something in this hole, but I'm not sure. All right, does anybody know what this is? It's broken, it's not the whole piece. This came from a tree. This came from a walnut tree. This is a walnut, but it's been broken open. Why do you think it's broken open? Do you have any guesses? Do you know any animals that would want to break open a walnut? I think that a squirrel broke open this walnut to eat the inside of it. I see lots of squirrels outside in the walnut tree, and I think that maybe that's what happened to this walnut. Here's some flowers that I found outside. I know what this one's called. This one's called a dandelion. When dandelions look like this, that means they're about to change from a flower into some seeds. All flowers are trying to turn into seeds, and dandelions are really good at making seeds. In fact, I could even leave this on my table, and in a couple days, this dandelion won't look like a flower anymore. It'll look like a bunch of white seeds, and it'll make a big mess, right? I'm not sure what this purple flower is called, but we have a lot of these growing outside. And this looks like this one right here is starting to open up, but it's not opened yet. But this one looks like it's opened up all the way. I think I'll try with the microscope to see inside of there, right? Now, one thing that's really special about flowers is flowers have something called nectar, and lots of bugs like to drink the nectar. And so when you look inside of a flower, sometimes you will see little bugs and other animals that are inside of it trying to drink the nectar. Now, that's really special because when the bugs and other animals drink the nectar, they get something on them called pollen. And the pollen helps the flowers. If the bugs spread the pollen around to other flowers, then that's good for the flowers. So there might be some pollen in there. We'll have to see with the microscope and see if we can see in there. And here's one more very small flower that I found. Very small yellow one. Maybe we can check that one out with the microscope too. All right, let's look at the purple flower under the microscope. There is the petal of the flower. Now we're looking at the inside of the flower. What do you see? Do you see anything that looks like it might be pollen? Do you see anything that could be nectar that the insects are trying to drink? I see some little yellow spots on the purple petals, right in there. I wonder if that's the pollen. I wonder if that's what gets stuck to the bugs when they are flying around. I wonder if that's what the flower is trying to spread around. Let's look at another one. Let's look at the little yellow flower next. All right, see if we can see anything interesting in this one. There's my finger, I'm holding it. I'm gonna try to hold it still. It's very small. Huh. I wonder if that's pollen on the petal of this flower also. It's hard to see because it's yellow on yellow. It looks kind of camouflaged. And I wonder if there's any pollen there. Let's look at the dandelion now. Dandelion is all yellow. Oh, are those the seeds? I don't know. Maybe those are starting to turn into seeds that are going to spread around. And if a dandelion drops some dandelion seeds, what are those seeds going to do? They will grow into new flowers. And what kind of flower? If it's from a dandelion, it's a seed from a dandelion, then what kind of flower is it going to grow into? It's going to grow into another dandelion. Cool. I did not know that dandelions looked like this if you could get really close to them. Here's the animal that I found trapped in a spider web. You guys have any guesses what it might be? I'm not sure what it is. I have a guess, but I'm not sure. I think we should look at it closer with the microscope and see if we can tell. Okay, now that I'm looking at this animal really close, I have a good idea of what it might be. What do you think this animal is? There's one of its legs. I think that this is some kind of spider. It looks to me like it has 4 legs on one side and 4 legs on the other side. I think it has 8 legs. And I know that spiders have 8 legs. I also see that its legs have little hairs on them, and I've seen that before on a spider. That's why I think that this is some kind of spider. But this spider was caught in a spider web. I wonder if this spider made the spider web, or if the spider web came from a different spider. What do you think? Here we have a very special kind of plant. This is a very small piece of it. This is called moss, and moss feels very fuzzy. It kind of feels like a carpet, right? It feels like a carpet, but it's a plant. And it's a special plant because moss can grow where there's no dirt. Moss can grow on top of a rock, but it needs lots of water to live. That's moss. I would like to look at that with the microscope. We'll check that out with the microscope for sure. Okay, this is the moss under the microscope, and I see something on the moss. Do you see it too? I see a small moving animal on the moss. Wow, it's really small. I didn't know that there were little animals that lived on moss like that. I wonder what kind of animal that is. I'm going to move it around a little bit and see if we can see any more animals on the moss. Let's look very carefully. Wow, that animal is really small. I also noticed that the moss has tiny leaves. When I look at moss with my eyes, I cannot See those tiny leaves. I can't see the tiny leaves when I look at the moss with my eyes. All I can see is just some little green stuff. But when you look really close, you can tell that it has little leaves on it. Okay, here we have a very small green bug of some kind, and I found this bug inside of a flower. What I want to know is this bug helping the flower? Is it spreading some pollen? Is it just drinking the nectar, or is this bug bad for the flower? Is this bug animal that is eating the flower? And I found another one that looks very similar, but I don't know if it's the same kind or if it's different. It's a little bit hard to see right now. It's also green. And so we're going to look at these two under the microscope and see if we can learn more about them. All right, now we're looking at the little bug that was on the flower. And it is crawling very fast. So it's hard for me to keep it under the microscope, but I'm going to try. All right. How do you think this bug is feeling? It's probably kind of scared. Probably thinks that I am going to try to eat it. Probably thinks that I'm a predator. But don't worry, bug. I am going to let you go in the yard. We just want to learn about you. I see it has 3 legs on one side, and it has 3 legs on the other side. I also see 2 antennae. Do any of you remember what kind of bug has 6 legs, 3 on each side, and 2 antennae? This must be an insect. It's going to try to climb up the wall now. Try to focus it so we can see it a little bit better. I think this is some kind of insect, but I still don't know if it's good for the plant or if it's bad for the plant. If it's an aphid, then it's going to try to eat the flower. Aphids are very small insects that like to eat plants. So I don't know if this is good for the flower or if this is an animal that wants to try to eat the flower. All right, let's look at the other one. Okay, this one is also crawling around, so it's going to be hard for me to keep it under the microscope. What do you notice what's different about this one? What does this one have that the other one doesn't have? This one has wings, right? Do you see the wings? That means that it would be easy for this bug to fly from one flower to another, right? I see antenna on the top too. It's a little hard for me to count these legs because this bug is crawling sideways. I still don't know if this is good for the flower or if this is bad for the flower. But if it has wings, maybe that means it could fly to another flower and spread the pollen. Maybe this one is a pollinator. I do not know. All right, it's time for me to go outside and let these animals go so that they can go be in their homes. Thank you for looking at some nature from my yard, and I hope you guys are having fun. If you have a yard at your house, or if you go to the park, take a look at the flowers and the plants, and look really close, see if you can find any small animals. Bye-bye, Huskies. Bye-bye, Bulldogs.